So today we will talk about the history of decentralized Oracle networks, the main problems that they were facing, kind of the twisted, this would be a talk that is a little bit like a guide. Like, what if we are trying to break this network? What would be our approach? And how we can get away with large profits. All right, but first of all, a few words about who I am. As I mentioned, I founded Blocksense this year precisely with the goal of introducing a proper solution to the problem of how we get data on chain that is submitted in a trustworthy fashion without relying on any centralized entity, and creating a protocol that anybody can contribute as a data reporter, as a kind of feed creator, or just as a user of the data. Before starting Blocksense, I was leading the Nimbus development team for 6 years, since the inception of the project. As you may know, Nimbus is one of the Ethereum clients. We were part of the transition to proof of stake, and Nimbus was participating in the genesis of the beacon chain. Before that, I had been contributing for many years to the NIM programming language. That's how I ended up on the Nimbus team, because Nimbus is implemented in NIM. All right, but first of all, a few words, why do we need decentralized oracles? Or oracles in the first place. Basically, you could argue that without oracles, without strong connection with the events happening in the real world, the information in the real world, the blockchains will always be limited to kind of very self-contained use cases, maybe only about kind of financial transactions between the participants, but never escaping this very tight box. It kind of limits the relevance of what you can do with smart contracts. Smart contracts are much, much more exciting if they can kind of deal with entities from the real world, just like the real economy, after all. And the problem with oracles today is that kind of they are largely dominated. The industry is dominated by a few centralized players, which are for-profit entities. Kind of the industry is set up in the wrong way. Basically, these few decentralized centralized players, they get to choose what information will be uploaded on chain, and only then can innovators and entrepreneurs start building applications around this information. And it shouldn't be like this. It should be that anybody who has an idea how to leverage some information from the real world can move forward on their own without asking permission from anyone, and basically bring the data they did on chain so they can create their dApp. And the only way to achieve this is to create a truly decentralized protocol where the oracle, the feed creation, is actually permissionless. Anybody can do it. And that's what we are trying to build with Blocksense. But how come there's why is this industry still dominated by centralized players? Let's look at the problems. Well, first of all, how can you build a decentralized network? Turns out that it's not that kind of the basic idea is very simple. It was introduced by Vitalik more than 10 years ago, and it's based on kind of game theoretical principle. Imagine a game with, say, 10,000 participants, where you select randomly and secretly a small subset of them, say 100, and you ask them an arbitrary question. For example, what's the current temperature outside of this building here in Sofia? And the rules of this game are such that if you provide an answer that agrees with the majority of other answers, you get a reward. If your answer disagrees with the majority, you can get a penalty. And it's not immediately obvious, but one of the best strategies in this game is just to tell the truth, because if everybody tells the truth, everybody is going to win. And if you try to lie, since there are so many possible ways of lying, it's very unlikely that you end up in a majority. So basically, this game incentivizes the reporting of truthful data. Okay, looks like we've solved the problem. But the problem is actually that somebody, an outsider, can introduce a new, more obvious answer, kind of new, what is called the sharing point, something that the users, the participants in this game can kind of go to without coordinating between each other much. And the attacker can do this very simply. Basically, he can say, I will offer some money to anybody who votes that the temperature outside right now is 100 degrees. Or I'll use this example, and what's the color of the sky till the rest of the talk. So if the attacker goes and say, I will offer $100 to anybody who claims that the sky is red, but only if, in the end of the day, the protocol still decides that the sky is blue. This kind of changes the incentives in a very peculiar way. Now, everybody is incentivized to vote the sky is red, because even, let's look at the two possibilities. If everybody votes that the sky is red, you will still get a reward because you agree with the consensus of the network. So there's no risk here. But if the network votes that the sky is blue, as the attacker is proposing, then you get even larger reward if you vote that the sky is red. So voting that the sky is red is the obvious choice now. Like, you cannot lose if you vote that. And then everybody will go through this process, and everybody will decide to vote that the sky is red. And now the attacker achieved their goal. The network produced the wrong answer, and the attacker didn't have to pay anything, because the conditions of his bribe was that he will pay only if the network voted the sky is blue. So this is a very twisted attack that the attacker gets what they want even without paying anything. Okay, so how can we solve this problem? There were kind of various ideas over the years. One idea is that maybe we make kind of the token of the network forkable. Basically, we will allow, if an attack happens, the honest participants in the network, can collectively decide, okay, let's create a new token when only the honest participants will remain, and everybody who participated in the attack will be thrown out of the network. So they can kind of navigate the attack through social consensus. And this has been tried first by Augur in the context of prediction markets. And Eigenlayer recently introduced some additional concepts by kind of making their primary token fork aware. So when it's locked in DeFi protocols, kind of this active forking kind of doesn't destroy the positions of the people holding the Eigen token. And there's some clever mechanisms for compensating the affected protocols in case of attack. But that's the point. Like, if attack happens, the damage is already done. Like, maybe some DeFi protocol, maybe some breach misreported the state of another chain, and somebody walked away with kind of millions of funds in the process. And the other major problem is that kind of this construct, it requires everybody to participate in every vote. Because the network is as secure is secure because you can slash the kind of malicious actors. But if not everybody is voting, then the malicious actors wouldn't be so many that can get slashed, and this filtering mechanism will have to continue on and on and on until we eject all the malicious actors from the network. So the problem is that everybody has to vote on every single decision, which is just not scalable. Okay, and the problem with these bribery attacks that I described is that they can actually be executed very efficiently through the power of smart contracts, because you can create a smart contract where the attacker puts some money in escrow, essentially, and the smart contract can define the conditions when the participants in the attack will be paid out. So basically, they can review the code of the smart contract. They can assure themselves that, indeed, they will get this payment. They can only have to trust the code. The attacker can remain anonymous because they just uploaded the smart contract. And with the power of kind of zero-knowledge technology, TEs, and so on and so forth, you can really get very far. Like, the participants in the attack don't have to reveal their identities, potentially. You can implement a scheme where the payouts are not done in the public. So this attack can get very sophisticated. The problem is that smart contracts are just too powerful. So, okay, what can we do about this problem? Our contribution is that, and if you think about what I described so far, essentially this is a voting system, not very much from a regular democracy. And we know that in regular democracy, kind of bribery, collusion, or kind of voting coercion, these are real problems. So what are the tools of the real democracies to address them? One of the tools is vote secrecy. Like, it shouldn't be obvious to anybody how other members of the protocol are voting. And the other property that is very important is something called received freeness. This is that you cannot prove to anybody how you vote. So if you had these properties, And if we had these properties, we can also do something else. Instead of asking everybody to vote on every decision, we can ask a small subset of the users to vote on the decisions. And as long as this kind of subset is secret, basically, when you are in a voting committee, you can only know that only you are a member. You don't know who the other members are. And external observers cannot know at all who the members of the voting committee are. So basically, if you want to collude with somebody, if you want to bribe somebody, the first problem is that you don't know who to kind of approach at all, who you should address in your attack. The second problem is that if people cannot prove to you how they vote, then bribery becomes impractical because you can offer the bribe, but then people can take the money, they can vote whatever way they want, and you would still have no mechanism to verify whether they have followed your kind of bribing direction or not. And there is no mechanism that the smart contract could use to kind of determine who should be paid. So this makes the kind of smart contract attack much more difficult. But the problem is that if you control, say, more than 51% of the voting power in the network, you could still overturn the decisions of the protocol. So we are kind of the cryptoeconomic security is still not perfect because our protocol can protect only kind of assets that doesn't exceed the total amount of stake that is locked into the protocol. And this is not perfect. And the other kind of problem is that to achieve secret voting, again, through the power of ZK technology, that's very difficult because no matter what kind of encryption or kind of cryptographic scheme you can come up with, people will be able to submit zero-knowledge proofs that they have followed all the rules in the protocol, but additionally, they are privately revealing their vote to you. Basically, the only way to achieve this vote secrecy if some members of the protocol are carrying something secret that is not publicly known information, and this kind of secret information is actually used to kind of process who gets the right to vote or not in any given situation. But lucky enough, if the holders of this kind of secret information are limited in kind of their actions in the protocol, all of their actions are kind of filtered through a ZK circuit as well, then we can really limit their power to basically only revealing the votes of the users, but not being able to manipulate the system in any other way. All right, and so how do we kind of break this property? How do we improve further the cryptoeconomic security? The first idea is that once we ask a small committee to make a decision, we can allow the other participants in the protocol to appeal the result of this decision before it reaches the target blockchain where it would have a large impact. So basically, we are containing the attack within our Oracle network instead of allowing each to have kind of its devious final kind of consequences. So this appeal mechanism basically can work in a simple way where the small committee gets challenges, then we create a much larger committee that has to now take sides in this kind of conflict. And one of the losing sides in this conflict is going to be slashed. They're going to be ejected from the protocol. So we are raising the stakes quite high. And this means that the whistleblower, this participant who started the appeal process, can get a very large reward because the reward can be derived from the slashed stake in this situation like this. And this means to the fact that because anybody can be a whistleblower, now if you go back to this initial bribery attack where you are offering a bribe to everybody in the protocol, the bribe has to be very high because it must be higher than the reward for the whistleblower, because we need only a single honest whistleblower. And the only way to achieve this is the bribe offered to everybody in the protocol is so high that it exceeds the payout to the whistleblower. So this means that funds that the attacker has to invest now greatly exceed the total stake locked in the network. But we still have the problem that if the attacker has actually gained control over the voting power in the protocol by creating a lot of stakers and so on and so forth, he can even kind of win the appeal process itself. So we need to make the appeal process even stronger somehow. And there are two ways that we think we can do that. The first of all, we have to be honest that the Oracle industry right now is is dominated by centralized solutions, which are basically protocols where large institutions put their reputation at stake, not the actual money, but their reputation. Basically, we are trusting that the big banks of the world or reputable institutions such as blockchain development foundations, etc., they are not going to submit malicious information because this would reflect negatively on their reputation. So we can somehow, and this is quite efficient because it doesn't require anybody to participate with capital. You only participate with your reputation. But it's not ideal, obviously, because these trust-based systems are suboptimal. Like, it would be nicer if we had proper cryptoeconomic security. But we can find a way to create a hybrid system where both stake and reputation are taken into consideration in the overall design. And the way to achieve this is, we believe that we can delegate the decision who has reputation to the actual users of the network. So basically, every time a protocol uses the data coming from the Blocksense network, they earn something like reputation credits that they can give away. They can designate certain participants in the Blocksense protocol that they consider to be trustworthy. And then these participants can be given more power in when taking side in appeal decisions, for example. So this means that to overcome the appeal process, now you need much more than 51% of the stake. You have to overcome this reputation system that is laid on top of this. And furthermore, we can require the participants in the network to prove their competence and trustworthiness in the network by gaining a track record, reporting many correct values over time before their influence in the network increases. So initially they start with stake, they get the rewards in the network, but their influence in these voting processes is weaker. This prevents a situation where somebody can come up with a lot of stake suddenly, quickly take over the economic aspect of the network, but they still cannot take over the voting power in the network so quickly. And finally, let's ask ourselves a question. What will happen if the network actually reports that the sky is red? Wouldn't this destroy the confidence in the network and basically greatly devalue the value of the Blocksense token? So we can use this insight to create a final appeal mechanism which works through a system called future key. The way that future key does is you create two prediction markets, which are basically answering the question, what will happen if the network decides that the sky is red? And what will happen if the network decides that the sky is blue? If the network decides that the sky is blue, we should expect that nothing should happen, right? Everything worked correctly. The value of the Blocksense token should continue to be what it is today. So the rational actors in this prediction market should predominantly make a prediction that nothing will happen, the price will not drop. Well, in the other market, which is asking what will happen if the network decides that the sky is red, the rational actors in this network should predict that the price of the Blocksense token will go down, right? So by creating these prediction markets, we are basically allowing anybody to participate in the decision now. Not only the stakers in our protocol, but the entire world. And furthermore, there will be affected protocols by the decision that the sky is red, right? So they have great interest to protect the assets there that are under control by their protocols. So they can gather their forces, they can mobilize themselves and participate in this prediction market as well. So it's going to become something like a bidding war. But the point is that in this bidding war, the good guys have rationality on their side. Like every time that the bad actor is trying to basically make the claim, the price of the Blocksense token won't drop as a result of the decision that the sky is red, there will be millions of other actors that will be willing to bet against him and say, are you crazy? The price is surely going to drop. So basically, he has to now bribe the entire world to get what they want. And they will have to pay dearly for a successful attack. So that's basically how you can build a decentralized protocol that has much stronger cryptoeconomic security than what is available today. And if you're interested to follow our progress, my last slide was going to point out that you can go to the blocksense.network website, or you can follow us at x.com at blocksense_. It's also linked from the website.